if he checks all those boxes, we have history together. He understands me in a way that I can't explain to somebody. And it just kind of felt right.
Hey everyone, welcome back to UnCoupling, where we talk about breakups and more importantly, how to move on by empowering yourself. I'm your host, Holland, and I am so excited to announce this week's guest, Sasha Pieterse. Am I pronouncing this correctly? That was a no. The shake was a no.
No, it's so close. It's Pieterse. Actually, it's so easy to say, but when you look at it, it messes everybody up.
Sasha Pieterse is a multi-hyphenate talent. She is an actress, she's an author, and she's a podcaster, but you probably know her best from the amazing, incredible series Pretty Little Liars and her podcast, Women in the Nude, which I have a couple questions about at the very least, and your cookbook that has just come out called Sasha in Good Taste. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
To get us started, what is the relationship? Is there a particular breakup that sticks out in your mind that led you to where you are today because you are married at this?
Yeah, I guess I have quite a unique situation. I wouldn't necessarily say what one particular breakup, but I've been with my husband for a long time. So my relationships, I was like a young adult, and I reflect on my like teenage and young adult breakups, and obviously those I feel like sometimes even shape you the most. I had some weird dating experiences, and I feel like I learned the majority of what I wanted in a relationship from my friends' breakups.
The osmosis, the fly on the wall.
I had weird relationships where like they would, like, I guess the teenager stuff, you get like the cheating stuff and you get like all of that stuff. But my dating experiences were weird. Like there was this guy, I thought he was super cute. I met him at a party and we went on a date. We got, I don't know, frozen yogurt or something. And we sat on a picnic bench in a park, and he professed his love for me. This is the second time I met him.
I was going to say, what's your top three? This is definitely top three of the most strangest experiences.
He professed his love for me, said that he was going to marry me, was talking about how he can already hear like the pitter patter of our kids' feet, like in the hallway. And it takes
how old were you? You were like 16, 18?
I was 17.
17.
It takes a weird turn because he starts talking about the things that I need to know about him, which was that he was like had been to juvie and then prison, and he was a felon.
Oh no!
Stopped somebody that jumped his brother, and he was talking about all of his anger issues and how, but he's changed. And I was like, oh, how long ago was that? He's like, oh, I got out like 3 months ago. I was like, oh
where did you meet this person? Was this at a bar or hopefully not through a friend?
It was just a party. So yeah,
I guess that's right. You said, yeah, you met a friend at a party. Yeah.
Yeah. But then he wouldn't leave me alone. And that was the scary thing, because that was it. I knew, and he drove me, which was even worse. Never do that. And so I knew, I was like, this will be the last time I see this guy. And he kept calling me, and the voicemails just got creepier and creepier and creepier. So I've had weird things like that.
And you had to block him, I'm assuming, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I blocked him off of everything. Thank goodness he wasn't heavily related to any friends that I would like worry about running into him. It was just
right. Well, and I have to just wonder like what was going on in his life or his childhood that made him, fast forward and do this like Happy Meal box version of like, you're the girl, you're for me, let's skip all the other stuff, and but when you're worried for your own safety, it's I don't know if you spend much time even being, I'm like your typical Libra of being empathetic, and like, no, you get out of Dodge and you block that guy. Yeah, that was that was a breakup before the relationship began.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
Like a taste of my dating life before I actually.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really sweet that later in life I actually like got the guy that was the standard. And along the way, so many of our friends had terrible, terrible, heart-wrenching breakups that both him and I were there for, both physically and emotionally. A girlfriend of mine, like there was a long time where she was being cheated on for like 3 years, where she thought that maybe she had gotten an STD from this guy. Like, it was a giant, giant betrayal from somebody that we were super, super close to.
Mm.
And I just remember holding her in my arms for like hours. Like, I spent the night with her. I mean, it's just so sad, but to see where she is now and how far she's come and how she's blossomed and how, she has such a great partner now. It's just such a wonderful thing to like see people transition through that.
Was there a particular breakup? I guess I'll start with your particular breakup that led you obviously to your person, and then to be such a rock for you and your husband, to be both rocks for the community in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the guy right before Hudson is the easiest, not the easiest, but the biggest realization of there are so many nice guys out there. That doesn't make them the right one.
So he's a great guy and he just wasn't the right one.
And he just wasn't the right one. And that's okay. And sometimes it's even more sad.
Totally.
And I think that's also something to keep in mind when you're dating. It's like, just because somebody ticks boxes doesn't make them the person for you. And the more that kind of lingers, the more time you waste.
And I think it's doing both of you a disservice,
Absolutely.
that it's okay. It's a success to admit that you like each other, but you don't love each other. You don't love each other enough, or it's not the right kind of love.
Yeah. And I think it's also, like in his circumstance or our circumstance, it was more about, I realized later that I was mourning the life that I thought we would have. And it's like the family, the idea of it versus what actually was happening in the relationship. And I'm so thankful for that relationship, because it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that like my individuality really matters. And that constantly learning about yourself is such a huge part about life, obviously, but also about your relationships, because you need to understand what you need in order to find what you want, and also what will make a lasting relationship work.
Right.
And you can't do that if you're just trying to find yourself in somebody else.
I think having not even an identity, but a realization that you need to have your own identity it is a process in itself. Because that initial go-to is to people please, or because they're so lovely. Well, why isn't that good enough? It's okay that it's not good enough. And it shouldn't offend the other person. If both of you can sit in that honesty, it's a really beautiful thing. And like you said, it almost makes it more sad if you both can come to terms with that together. But at the same time, I think there's also something so beautiful in it not being so, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's what also makes every breakup significant and different, and why you learn from different relationships, both ones that, weren't necessarily in an unhealthy category. And then obviously the ones that are. I feel like there's just so much to learn about yourself and other people in general too. I think it's also important to find that empathy, and also I feel like understand that, this comes to the whole classic, like, you can't fix people sort of a thing, where it's understanding why somebody is the way that they are, but knowing that it's okay that it's not you to fix it. That it doesn't have to be you to mend somebody else.
And learning that processing period of giving someone a chance. And it's that, fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, it takes a lot for people to change. It takes so much therapy. It takes, just external and internal work. So don't be the hero, because you can't be everything to that person for them to change.
No. And often I feel like, and this is based on watching my friends go through something like this, where they are that person for somebody. And then when that person is, quote unquote fixed, they move on. It's like that purpose in their life, and that's great. And now they know what they want, and it's not them, which is
Yeah,
so painful.
that is
Extremely
devastating.
painful, right? And I think we see that a lot in broken marriages. And that's also, you know, in retrospect, you never know, or you never do it, or you would do it again, whatever your life experience is. But it is just one of those things in life where sometimes that does happen. Those people serve purposes in your life, and then that chapter is closed. But there's a lot of people that get left in that wake, and a lot of it, I feel like, is based on wanting to help people. It's not really a good intention. Or again, creating a life that you think that you want with somebody, and it not turning out. That reality never existing, you know?
Yeah. The mourning of what never happened, I think, is a big part of breakups that people go through. That's a definitely a common trope, a path heavily walked. Would you say that? So did Hudson know your ex, or were you able to have a very clean break and then?
No, actually, he's known all my exes. And so I've never dated an actor. It was a policy. I was like, I will never date an actor. No, like, no judgment to anybody that does. I
Unfortunately did not make the cut, but I'm close to making the cut, with only maybe a couple on my roster. So I completely understand, just because I think we're gypsies, and that's a really hard schedule to navigate when you're both gypsies and you're both in the circus.
Yeah, there's so many, that's a whole different conversation. Actors and so many different reasons why I think so many actors don't work together. But thankfully, I feel like we have such a cool combo, which is, I've known him for so long. But also he was on the other side of the camera. So he was in production, and he knew that world. And was in that world. So there was no like, honey, I'm coming home late again. It was, he understood what I had to do, you know, any, you know, on screen love interest. Like, it wasn't a big deal because he totally understood. And that was such a unique combo. And I'm like, so thankful for that, not having to explain things. And I think that is a really great part about also putting friendship as a huge part of your relationship, where they should also be your best friend. Your partner should also be your best friend, because it's about enjoying life together, and intimacy comes in so many different shapes and forms, and they should all be included. So I think working on your relationship and developing those parts is super, super important. Intimacy on so many different levels.
Yeah. I definitely, you know, I love taking advice from people like their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I think so much of us look to even our peers, because that's who we see on a normal basis. But my stepmom always said, you know, intimacy will come and go, but best friends, that's the glue that's going to hold you together. And obviously, with, you know, that you've had children, there's so many different, like you said, versions of intimacy. It's always going to be, that's a living, breathing organism that's always going to be changing. So that can't be the basis of the relationship. Now, when you finally parted ways from your ex, did your current, because he was a friend at the time, obviously, like, did he help you through it? Was there a particular person that made you clear things off the table? And then what made you come around? Like, what do you think about the last relationship you had before your husband that said, okay, I'm taking these 3 qualities. Oh, I've noticed those 3 things have changed about myself, that made you then look towards your friend that then became your partner? What do you think changed? Like, why then do you think the last relationship transitioned to the relationship that then worked?
Yeah, I think in lots of ways, he helped me get through it. He wasn't the immediate person that I went to. I had my best girlfriend.
So the best girlfriends. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And she definitely helped me through that, I would say, the most. And then we kind of just reconnected. He was a friend that was always around, but I think he was dating somebody else at the time too.
Okay.
So he got out of a relationship as well. Um, and our friends were going off to college, and people were moving away and getting big kid jobs and that sort of thing. And then it was like, oh, hey, you.
Oh,
Yeah. It was just kind of one of those moments, but it was also that, like, should we ruin it? This is a friendship
right.
forever. It was that classic, like, do we kind of ruin this friendship potentially?
That was literally my next question. Like, how do you decide to take that next step? Because so much is on the line when they're not a dating app contestant, or, you met them at a party where it's easy to disconnect for the most part. So yeah, what changed for both of you that said, okay, we would like to explore this? And then what made y'all say, okay, let's explore this?
I think it was just one of those things where it felt right. Actually, there is a moment. We had just started spending a lot of time together, and we were going on dates that we didn't know were dates, essentially. You know what I mean? It was
The
one of those,
non-date date. Yeah.
I mean, it's a date. And we were eating lunch, and my phone was flipped up, with the screen up, and I got a text from my ex, who I hadn't heard from.
The previous ex.
Year, not the previous ex.
Another ex. Okay.
And he was kind of like, well, that's it. I got to tell you, like, I think we should definitely try this. He got really pissed off that he was like, oh,
he was like, someone's in my territory, and if I don't sweep this girl, and no, it wasn't on. So it was pressure that he was, yeah.
And it made me laugh because, first of all, I would never have gotten back together with that ex. But it was a very cute moment where it kind of just, I guess it just kickstarted it. It was like, okay, well, we're gonna, let's try it.
And you had obviously felt the same, and so it was a relief when he said what he said.
Yeah, I laughed for about 5 minutes, which made him super self-conscious. Right. He was like, oh no. And it was just more so laughing at the situation. But I mean, in my heart, I wanted to.
So did you feel like the biggest thing you took away from the previous breakup that led you to him, was it timing, or was it the idea that you had been through a few people, you knew you wanted to get married early, you had already, like you said, from the previous ex, had been mostly more, you knew he was a nice guy, but you were mostly mourning the life that you didn't have with him.
Yeah.
And so what was that transition like for you?
I think I've just always been super monogamous. Like, there was no question. I never wanted to just date. And in a way, at that age, like, I kind of envied my friends that wanted to just date and have fun. It was just not in me. It wasn't like something that I wanted.
Because you're still young. The fact that you got married young as well and had all this life experience by the time you got married.
Right. And so it was just kind of like, it felt right. He did. He checked all those boxes. It was just kind of like one of those things where I was like, well, he's the person that I always said that I would keep my standard to. And he's right here. Well, why not? Let's try it, because if he checks all those boxes, we have history together. He understands me in a way that I can't explain to somebody. And it just kind of felt right. But I don't know if it would have.
If you hadn't been through those other relationships,
exactly, like a year previous or something like that, because everything that changes in your life makes you a different person by the time you get there. And that person, that's why it's like, it might be the right person, not the right time. Those sorts of things are so true, because you change. And I think that we were just lucky to grow together instead of growing apart, because that is a part of it as well. In relationships in general, it's working on it, but also sometimes things in life just do change you in a way that make you different from your partner. And we've always been lucky that hasn't been the case for us.
I think hard work meets opportunity. I think it's the luck meets opportunity balance. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I love that there wasn't, fortunately, there wasn't a big crashing down moment that led you to this. It was this gentle, it's okay that we're not going to be okay together X that led you into what worked for you now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like in those moments, it does feel like the end. It feels miserable and awful. And like, there's nothing like that heartache. Like it really is terrible.
Because you really did think, you were, like you said, mourning that you just didn't have, or what you thought you would have had.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, that fantasy. Yeah, for sure. And it's just, it's gut wrenching. And I think it's important to realize that as hard as it is in the moment, it does get better. It always gets better because it's never a failure. It's always a lesson. Everything.
It's never a failure. It's always a lesson is such a great thing to take forward. Yeah.
It really is everything in life.
Yeah.
And like friendships, relationships, business, literally everything. You can only learn from it. And they're always hard lessons. It sucks to experience it, but you won't know what you're capable of, and you won't know what you need unless they happen.
It's all you at the end of the day. So you're just going to find the great thing about breakups is you're not breaking up from your own fantasies. Those can still be alive and well, but they can feel like they're ending when you're parting ways with someone.
And they can change. I feel like the older you get, and I hate to use age because age is just a number to me, but maybe the more life that you've lived, you realize that those things that you may have wanted are not what you actually want in life.
Is that the number one piece of advice you give to all your friends when they come over and they're like in pieces on the floor?
I mean, yeah, kind of like, if there's a reason things don't work out.
Yeah. I think that it's a yin and yang though, because when, we have guests that are married, that's a wealth of information that you really come full circle about how much you've learned about yourself, like you said, through your past experiences to lead you into your current state.
Yeah. So, I mean, like a lot of my girlfriends have done the dating app thing or do the dating app thing.
Because you never did a dating app, right?
I didn't. Yes. I live vicariously through them. I'm like, oh, can I swipe? I want to know. I want to know what this is about. Feels like a game that I didn't get to do. I have like serious FOMO about it. And
as you know, the FOMO is very short-lived because dating apps, they're interesting. I love a psychologist's version of dating apps, synopsis on it. But yeah. So when you're swiping through their dating apps and they come over,
wild. It really is wild. It's like the wild, wild west. And I've had friends have a lot of success with it. I have several girlfriends that are married from guys that they met on Bumble or Hinge or those that type of thing. But I guess more so, I hate seeing my friends bend themselves to somebody else, like change, like the light that they have kind of dims because they are trying to make themselves the best partner for somebody else. Like that's the most common thing that I see in my girlfriend. And it's because I've known them for so long. I've seen them at their best and their worst. And, obviously I'm biased. Like I want them to find the perfect guy or the perfect girl. And it's sad when I see them shift their priorities and their goals based on a relationship.
And why do you feel like they do that? Like what was the biggest thing for your, as a collective whole with your friends? Fascinating that we only get to we come into this world by ourselves. We're going to leave this world by ourselves.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's somebody that you're not married to them, you're barely dating them. At that stage, you're willing to put another human being over your beating heart. That's not your child or not your spouse. What do you think is going on in their own lives that makes them that vulnerable to doing that?
I think there's a couple of reasons, and this is not just going to be like based on my friends. I think it's like a kind of
that's societal.
Yeah, I think it's notoriously what's given women value is their relationship. It's who they're married to, like their place in life. I think that's a huge one, and so even if it's just subconscious, it's like it's something to do on your to-do list. And the older you get, the more pressure you feel to complete that task.
There's a time clock. There's a timer running out.
And if you want kids or you feel like you're meant to have kids, that's an extra that puts an
added pressure. Oh yeah, totally.
So I'd say that's a huge part. But I think also it's natural to want to be loved. And I think, being lonely sucks. It sucks to feel lonely. And so if bending yourself to form to be somebody that you think somebody is going to like, to fill that void. Again, most of the time it's subconscious because you don't necessarily want to do that. Sorry, my light is totally changing.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
You know, you're not intentionally doing that, but it happens. And instead you are just kind of taking away all the good things about you. And it's not moving you forward. All of my girlfriends are such badasses. They're lawyers and doctors and nurses and like authors, like incredible women that have no business doing that. And
it's incredible that it's not correlated, unfortunately, that you can have such self-worth and autonomy and intelligence on every level, every kind of intelligence in one area of your life. And then this other area is a complete stranger to some of those same attributes. And it could be situational as to why those attributes are a stranger to you.
And I truly think to encapsulate it, it really is like where you find your value. Because if people are telling you and you're believing it, that your value comes from somebody else loving you, then you are going to do whatever it takes to find that and to capture that. And when that doesn't work out,
you start sacrificing.
Yeah. And you put so much energy and so much of yourself into somebody else. And that it just like crumbles. It makes it so much harder. But you know, I've every single girlfriend that I've seen go through that has picked themselves
come out the other side.
They have. Yeah. And even if they're not in, you know, a solid or long-term relationship right now, they are way better people because of it.
It was something you said even made me think this idea that when you're alone, people immediately attribute that to lonely, and being alone is not lonely.
No.
It can be so much better than being with other people, depending on the kinds of other attitudes or moodiness or, you know, the outlook of the others around you. Being alone, we naturally attribute to loneliness oftentimes. And so I love, like you said, it's like, it's not about finding another relationship. And that's what this podcast is, why we wanted to start this podcast and start this conversation is, you know, it's not looking for your next partner. It's just enjoying the time we have on this planet. And whether that's with friends, because I always say friends don't, you know, if you both nourish the friendship, you don't ever have to break up. It's just like a romantic relationship. And so I love to see that your friends are discovering that alone is not lonely.
Yeah.
And there's so many other wells and areas of your life to feel fulfilled, feel loved. It does not have to come from a romantic partner.
No, it doesn't. And that's exactly, you need people that are honest with you as well. Because I think that is the biggest thing too, is if you're in an echo chamber, you're never going to get better either. We do need to have people around us that are like, maybe that was wrong. Maybe
so you're the tough house on the end of the block when your friends show up and you're like, okay, I like this. I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't think that's going to change.
I do. Yeah, I can be. There was one friendship when I was much younger. I was a teenager and she was getting married really fast to a guy that she had met online. And she had met him in person once and he proposed to her and she said yes. And she moved across the country to marry him. As far as we're not friends anymore. As far as I know, they're still married. But the first time that I met him, the way that he looked at me was so disgusting. It was like I was a piece of meat, and he was doing that to all of our friends and the people that we were meeting. And I was like, I have to say something. And she was changing herself for him. And I was like, I have to say something. And if this ends our friendship, I'm going to be okay with that, because
you left on clean terms. Yeah.
Yeah. If it means she second guesses the situation, or even if she just always has that in the back of her mind, and you know, they get married and then something happens, like hopefully it'll be like a red flag that she'll be listening to. Well, she didn't listen to me, and it did ruin our friendship. However, I feel at peace about it.
Right.
Because I would hate to be the reason to be the person that doesn't say something. And that has helped me in the future. Naturally, you want to protect your friend. You want to root for your friend. You want to be like, you know, screw that person. Like, you know, it's them. But when it's your friends,
yes,
that's a really hard thing.
doing it with a lot of love, and you're like, I'm just gonna be real. I was like, and you have to play a devil's advocate for the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, being vague, that was definitely one of the hardest things that I've had to do, is on a friend level, helping somebody go through a breakup, because trying to make sure that the outcome is all the things that can be better next time, it's a really shitty lesson to learn.
But you can, it's the same mindset as the previous girl you're no longer friends with. It's giving them the information that's going to, like you said, help them move forward, regardless if that's giving them tough information about their partner or if that's giving tough information about them. Regardless, it's going to make the next situation better.
Yeah.
On either side of the fence. And so they're both tough conversations.
By the way, she's also a much better person for it.
And maybe she corrected where she could then see a different side of things, and she would make different choices. Yeah,
she can recognize it, and more importantly, she's such a wonderful person anyway, but has like grown so much in herself and her career and her friendships, and everything else is just so much better and deeper. And I don't think that anybody ever hurts from positive criticism.
Constructive, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we grew up in a society where things they can't be honest, and everything's very nuclear, everything's very finite, everything's very black and white, and the reality of life is, I want all the little children books to say something different. And no matter what age we are in our lives, hopefully as we move forward, we become more of an honest society. And I think as millennials, I don't know if you're Gen Z or millennial, you might be even Gen Z. You're a lot younger than me.
I'm right on the cusp.
You're on the cusp, yeah. So like millennials felt more shame about their secrets than I feel like Gen Zers do. I think we're moving, and then our parents had more shame around their secrets than our generation does. So I think we're moving in the right direction. It's just these kinds of conversations of, and especially I'm an actress, you're an actress, coming out and we're in the public eye and say, hey, we'll still talk about this topic. It shouldn't be taboo. It shouldn't be something that we have to hide, regardless of if you're in the public eye or not.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it is one of the biggest things too, is that our parents treated, or at least, sorry, when I say our, I'm generalization here, in my experience too, but like my parents unintentionally made me feel like, oh, well, therapy means you're weak, because that's how they grew up. Therapy, talking about it.
I'm Southern. So I am in the same boat. They would always say physical therapy with no mental therapy. Yeah. And
instead of it being like, wow, good job, you're working on yourself, it's you've got a weakness, which is such a backwards, awful way of thinking about it. So
and they're still good people too. It's not that they're bad people teaching these lessons. They're trying to do you right, because the best knowledge they have. So it's just undoing, unfortunately, bad learning, and it's never a bad intention.
Yeah, but same thing like you were saying about a service. It's like, well, we take our cars in to get serviced, and we make sure that your car has enough oil, or it's charged, or, we do maintenance on things. And the fact that we don't consider doing maintenance on ourselves as important, or actually more important, is sad. It's sad. But I think you're right. I think we're getting there. We're talking more about it. There's more information out there. There are more studies being done. And I think the millennial into Gen Z generation has really kind of paved the way for that. Social media has paved the way for that. There are so many bad things that come with social media, but there are a lot of good things. And just like the fact that there's a community for people that all feel the same is massive. Whether that's just family life, friendships, relationships, all of it.
You have a community to go to that's 1 degree of separation that you can have a direct conversation with.
Yeah. And I do think that like it's a double-edged sword, being able to say anything into the abyss, both good and bad, it's an interesting one. But I think if it's used for good, it's life-changing. And so many people have solace in that way. And And I love that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think social media, I would say overall, I think with good conditioning, good learning, good habits at home, and then opening up social media to have access to topics that the pay wage, the pay difference, the wage difference. I mean, there are conversations where if a group of women didn't know that this was happening to these other women, they wouldn't have spoken up themselves. And so, when you get the group together, the French Revolution happens once people can communicate and see each other's grievances and realize their grievances are very similar. That's what creates, the mob. That's what creates the revolution, the change.
Yeah, exactly. And I truly believe that overall people are good.
I agree. Yeah, I have that sentiment as well.
And at least I hope so. I hope they are.
I think the minority sometimes have a bigger microphone of the people who have ill intentions sometimes have a bigger microphone. But overall, I would agree that most people have good intentions out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, basic needs, humans in generally want the same thing.
So the takeaway is, I feel like you should have like a whiteboard at your house that you have to like whip out when someone sits down on your couch and you're like, we're going to work through this from all angles. So I love that you and your husband, I'm assuming both of you, are just this therapy session that they can run to and be a sounding board on.
That we are not always right. We are not perfect. Our relationship isn't perfect. But what I will say, is that we have made it a priority to always work on things and communication. And that's out of ups and downs and hopefully, our future. That is, to me, it's the only way. It's the only way that anything ever gets better or really works is if you talk about it. And the reason it works for us is because we have relationships or family life that has not worked. And so it comes off of taking the good from the bad and filling the spaces with what we think will work and communication and speaking up and loving on each other and finding our love languages. Those are the ways forward. You're never going to be right all the time. I'm never going to be the perfect parent. He's never going to be the perfect parent. But we obviously are going to do our best. We do our best. And I think it's like a constant reevaluation of yourself and of your life and what you want.
Well, I will speak for your friends that I know you live in Nashville now, and my best friend also lives in Nashville. I adore her husband, and they are the couch for all of our friends. So there's something in the Nashville water that are the married couples sounding boards that we can run to as single chicks and single men. So I'm sure your friends are really incredibly grateful. So lightning round, do your best, which is I'm terrible at one-word answers. So I say this with all the grace in the world that I cannot achieve this, but one-word answers or one-sentence answers is the game. When was your first breakup?
12.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, wait. What is your model relationship? Like a parent, grandparent, friends? It can be a public figure, anybody.
Sure. I'm going to say us because I am really proud of us.
Yeah, you've worked really hard.
Right? Yeah.
What is your go-to breakup movie?
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that one. Okay. What is your breakup song?
It's like, I never knew that everything was falling through. That song. You know what I'm talking about?
That song. I do. Yeah. The Fray. Yep. I do know that song. What is your breakup food?
Cookie dough, 1,000%.
And then first thing to do after a breakup?
Cry. Let yourself cry. Crying is healthy.
What is your number one red flag in a relationship or a potential relationship?
Talking themselves up.
This is an interesting one. What is your beige flag, AKA, what is a fun quirk of yours that your partner loves?
I guess he loves and hates this. I'm so competitive.
Oh, fun. Like game night competitive and just in general competitive?
Everything competitive.
Everything.
Everything
Okay.
competitive.
Okay. So if you're in a long-term relationship, which clearly you are, what was the moment you knew he was the one?
Oh, I knew. I knew it from like our first kiss. As cheesy as that is, it was like this is. There was no question in my mind. Like something catastrophic had to happen for him to not be the one.
And did you ever have any ESP growing up? Was there anything in looking back retrospectively of, oh, I always knew it? Or was it when you started dating? Was it that first kiss?
No, I think it really was that first kiss because it was always like he took care of all of his friends. And especially as girls, like made sure that we were all safe, like would tell us honestly what he thought about the guys that we were dating. Like he was that, and I never looked at him that way. But it's like, hello.
Do you have any words of wisdom for uncoupling listeners out there?
Listen to your first instincts, because I feel like we all, for the most part, do see red flags and we choose to ignore them. So listen to your gut.
Thank you so much for listening to Uncoupling, and thank you, Sasha, for incredible words of wisdom. There's a lot of one-liners in there that I'm taking away today. I'm your host, Holland Roden, and don't forget to subscribe to Uncoupling, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Uncoupling podcast is produced by Stampede Ventures, Jason R. Ellis, and Holland Roden.